So recently, I challenged you guys to email me with your best Armored Core 6 builds, and after looking over literally 1,000 submissions, I think this one was my favorite. Its name is Microwaven, and I love it. It won the competition for a few reasons. First, the decals are just great. Second, its design matches its gameplay style, which is to use 4 pulse guns to absolutely cook most enemies, especially if they have pulse armor. But lastly, and most importantly to me, the build has a quirk to it. It features a discovery that makes it unique. And in this case, the quirk is that this build crams 4 energy weapons onto the VE-20B, a generator that has 150 points of energy firearm specialization, which typically does not have the output to support 4 energy weapons. However, this is one of the very few setups that manages that feat, leaving only 4 EN load to spare. That's an achievement in itself, and the build is really unique because of that. So this build is kind of the gold standard for this video, and I'm proud to say that this video actually contains a bunch of other builds that are just like it, ACs that you can download and use for yourself regardless of the platform you're on. 7 of these builds are my own designs, and they all have gimmicks of their own as well. For example, AC1 is one of the fastest viable builds that you can pilot. AC2 uses a trick to achieve infinite flight, and it never has to touch the ground. AC3 is designed to reload exclusively in the weapons bay, allowing for this unrelenting offense. AC4 deals almost all of its damage in melee. AC5 uses a technique that sets up these guaranteed chainsaw strikes. AC6 lets you focus on optimal energy weapon management, and AC7 has this playstyle that allows for near-instant staggers on pretty much any enemy. So let me showcase all of these builds and more as I show you what I discovered in the search for the best build in Armored Core 6. Also, special thanks to Displate for sponsoring this video. I have a new mecha-themed print on sale now, so check it out in the link below. This first AC only uses parts that are unlocked before Chapter 2, and that's a trend for all of the builds I designed. I wanted to make builds that are accessible no matter what chapter of the game you might be on. So my second build only uses parts unlocked before Chapter 3, then Chapter 4, and so on. And despite using only Chapter 1 parts, Burnished Gold here is strong, really strong. I know this because I stress tested it, and I was finally able to beat Bolteus here without taking a single point of damage. And any build that can achieve that feat is absolutely able to take on anything else the game throws at you as well. The no-hit run continues. This build revolves around a gameplay quirk where arm weapons can be reloaded and cooled down while they're switched out in the weapons bay, which is an OS upgrade that you can purchase for 2 OS tuning chips. To get this to work well though, we need 2 weapons that have synergistic reload and cooldown times, and one of the best combinations I've found are the GU-Q1 pulse guns and the Haldeman shotguns. These weapons just have such a perfect attack loop together, and by firing your pulse guns right before they overheat, then switching to and firing the Haldeman shotguns, you're able to achieve a consistent damage output that I simply don't think is possible with any other combination of Chapter 1 parts. But the other reason this AC is so strong is the quick boost speeds it can achieve, and that comes down to 2 parts. It comes down to the Nucked Raya legs and the Alula booster. These 2 parts also have just amazing synergy together. Basically, even though they're not reverse jointed, the Nucked Raya legs actually have a really high jump distance stat, giving a significant distance boost to your grounded dodges. And when these legs are combined with the Alula booster and its short quick boost reload stat, you essentially have the perfect boost interval where you're returning to the ground at the exact moment your booster is ready to quick boost again, allowing you to constantly kick off from the ground and benefit from your leg's amazing jump distance stat. The fact that I'm able to outrun the tracking of Bolteus's machine gun fire on the ground here kind of says it better than I can, really. For this build's share code and more information on the parts I use, click the link in the description. This next build is perfect for Chapter 2, and its gimmick is that it can easily achieve infinite flight, which really hard counters the two bosses of this chapter. To achieve infinite flight in AC6, all you really need is a coral generator, which are designed to be drained completely to make use of their exceptionally high supply recovery stats. However, these generators aren't available in Chapter 2, so this build uses a little trick instead. That trick is weapon recoil. Many weapons, like cannons or weapons with charge attacks, will pause you in the air while you fire them, so if you take care to fire those weapons when you've drained your energy supply, then you won't fall out of the air, and instead you'll stay suspended while your energy returns. This trick even works on bipeds, although in this case we're using a quad because it just has natural synergy with those recoil weapons in the air. So this build is called Eternal Fall, and it has a bit of an autumn color scheme going on. Also, our arm weapons are the Ransetsu RF, which is actually named after a Japanese poet who has a famous haiku about falling leaves, so it fits perfectly with our theme here too. But beyond me being a hardcore role player with all of my builds, we're actually using the Ransetsu RF for another reason, and that's because it's great at mid-range, and it has a charged triple burst attack that can be used to keep you in the air as a backup if your cannons are on cooldown. And speaking of cannons, ours are the Songbirds, which are pretty OP on any build, but they're especially lethal on this one with their double shot that keeps you in the air a little bit longer than the other cannons. For this build's share code and an explanation of the parts I use, click the link in the description. So this next build, designed for Chapter 3, is themed after the tester AC that you downed in Chapter 1, because I like to think that even the most novice pilot could get through the game with this build. You can kind of turn your brain off with this one. So it uses the same gimmick as the first build I showcased, with weapons that reload and cool down in the weapons bay, except where my gold lightweight AC is fast and designed to avoid hits, this tester AC is heavy and designed to take a lot of hits. To make up for our slow boost speed, this build uses another method to avoid attacks, and that's vertical jumps. Jumps are great because their uneven acceleration often throws off enemy FCS, and they don't even consume energy, so you can get away with a lighter generator, leaving more load free for more defense instead. The way to play this build is to just jump circles around your enemies while focusing on the insane damage output of the Zimmerman and Gatling guns. If you want something else to do, assault boost in for a kick in between shotgun bursts. Reverse joint legs are fantastic for kicking, after all. I stumbled upon this build during my first blind playthrough, and it easily overcame every challenge that New Game had for me. For this build's share code and more information on the parts I use, click the link in the description. Next up, a Chapter 4 build. Going into this one, I knew I needed to make something that was capable of defeating Cell 240 consistently. Coincidentally, I also wanted to make a melee-focused build for this video, and the stars really aligned here because it turns out that this melee setup really comes online in Chapter 4, and this build can easily overcome Ibis, like 99% of the time. Just look at the damage one combo can do. So let me explain this setup. First, you charge your right shoulder drones with R1 and release them. These drones will apply suppressive fire to your opponent, meaning they'll need to dodge these attacks, meaning it'll be less likely that they'll dodge your first melee strike instead. So your initiating attack is actually the VE67 LLA Laser Lance. It hits really reliably if you're aligned horizontally with your opponent, and it deals incredible impact damage. Not only that, but this weapon, unlike some other melee weapons, it has momentum that lands you right next to your opponent, which is exactly where you want to be for your follow-up attacks. The trick with the lance is that you want to charge up your right arm laser shotgun while you're stinging the enemy with your lance. This way, if your laser lance isn't enough to bring them into ACS overload, your laser shotgun will instead. Once they're staggered though, switch to the pile bunker on your left shoulder and position yourself for a charged attack for massive damage. This melee build just decimates any large boss, as their hitboxes and their longer than normal stagger windows make them prime targets for the pile bunker. And against Cell 240 in particular, for example, all you have to do is just wait for the right opening, strafe backwards diagonally, and make sure that you only dodge her projectiles after she fires them, and before long you'll spot this telegraphed attack. Strafe left, dodge the projectile to the left, and follow up with the lance and the shotgun if you need to for the guaranteed stagger. By following this approach, you'll basically come out on top against this boss every single time, meaning this build is perfect for S ranking this mission with ease. So against bosses this is great, but against enemy ACs you'll actually want to adopt a bit of a different playstyle. They have smaller stagger windows, meaning it's difficult to land the pile bunker unless they're in a corner or unless you stun them with assault armor. So you should mainly just use the pile bunker's uncharged attack as a gap closer instead. And this can get even better if you melee cancel it like this, and then you can just rely on your charged laser shotgun punch as your finisher instead. Against ACs you can actually even consider purging your right-hand weapon entirely, like a bee losing its stinger. This gives you the ability to punch enemies, which can actually stun lock enemy ACs for 3 consecutive hits while they're staggered, which does pretty incredible damage thanks to your Basho arms and their maxed out melee stat. Again, links in the description. Next build. So, what if I told you that Invincible Rummy, ranked dead last in the arena, actually has the makings of one of the most powerful ACs in the game? All it needs is a few tweaks to turn it into this, what I call Terminal Rummy, a fast, fragile variant of Mad Stomp that is kind of designed with one goal, and that is to set up these guaranteed charged chainsaw strikes on your opponents and to tear them to shreds in an instant. The playstyle that you adopt with this AC is kind of unique because you actually don't want to stagger enemies without thinking about it. Instead, you want to bring them to the precipice of stagger. And when they're about to be staggered, you switch weapons, then you charge your chainsaw, and then you stagger them and unleash the chainsaw in that same instant. And timed properly, this guarantees a direct hit, even against ACs, which traditionally have that quite small stagger window. The best weapon I've found to build up initial stagger are the Viento needle guns that you unlock after Chapter 4. These things are just incredible. They're light, with only 5 projectiles each, but they pack a hell of a punch, and they can be fired extremely quickly. However, the main reason these guns work for this build is because, unlike explosive weapons or shotguns, these Viento guns allow for this fine control over your opponent's stagger meter. So remember, the whole point of this build is to bring enemies to the edge of stagger, then switch to your other weapons, the chainsaw and the Sweet 16. Once you've switched over, you start charging your chainsaw, you get in close, and then you begin fishing for that stagger with your Sweet 16 shotgun. I really don't like just using the Zimmerman for everything, and the Sweet 16 has its advantages too. It's lightweight, which suits this build, and it's actually so short that you can fire it point blank, where some of the longer shotguns actually clip through the enemy. But if the Sweet 16 isn't enough to get that stagger, then you just keep charging your chainsaw and then only switch your right arm back to the Viento and just keep pushing for that stagger. Eventually, you'll get that hit off with the charged chainsaw, and this is a weapon that has the highest direct damage adjustment in the entire game. It does so much damage, and I think it's my favorite weapon in the game, honestly. So the toughest thing about this build is keeping track of all your weapons and sort of managing the reload states of your Viento guns, and also you have to make sure you don't release the chainsaw too early because that will lock you into place. This is a very fast but very fragile lightweight build and that assists with your positioning, but it makes you pretty squishy, so I like to run terminal armor for that temporary invincibility. You know, this is terminal rummy, after all. You are a fragile build, you're all in on that chainsaw combo, and terminal armor frees you up to pursue that goal without worrying too much about your low health total. And for S ranking many missions, this build is largely unparalleled. It ends fights so quickly with relatively little ammo used as well, and I easily S ranked every mission I attempted with this build. For links to this build and reasoning behind all of the other parts I chose, again, check the description. Moving into New Game Plus, let me show you my favorite tank tread build. So I like the AC name ALBINAURIC for this one, as they've lost use of their legs, and their silver weapon slots are kind of malleable on this build. They're able to be easily switched out to any other laser and plasma weapons that you might prefer. I say it's a New Game Plus build, but honestly, only the headpiece is found in New Game Plus, and the rest of this build can be mostly brought online after Chapter 3, when you can acquire the Nebula plasma rifles and the VP60 LCD diffuse laser cannon. I love the versatility of this laser cannon because it can be fired as a shotgun, or it can be fired as a charged long-range blast for stagger instead. And I love pairing the Nebula with this gun because it provides reliable damage at any range, and staggered opponents can be sort of forced to sit inside of the full, lingering AoE blast that the Nebula provides. But you might be wondering what the gimmick is with this build. Well, to me, the fun gameplay loop with energy weapons is just learning when to charge them, because depending on the situation, charged or uncharged shots might be better. Not to mention, charging shots also allows your weapons time to cool down, so there's a lot of skillful play that comes as a result of managing overheat as well. And for the longest time, I didn't enjoy laser and plasma weapons, simply because I found it too difficult to manage their overheat and their charging modes, and still manage to evade enemy attacks as well. However, then I had the idea of combining energy weapons with tank treads, and this is just the perfect match because with the Fortaleza legs, you're able to sort of mindlessly strafe and still be naturally avoidant of attacks, but that allows you the focus you need to manage your energy weapons instead. And honestly, I generally dislike tank treads with any other weapon, as I kind of find their strafing gameplay a little bit boring, but that's what makes tank treads the perfect platform for energy weapons, in my opinion, because your mind is free to focus on weapon management instead. If you want to go for heavier energy weapons, then you can simply consider the heavy tank treads as well, which is a pretty easy switch. For more information, check the description. Next up is perhaps the AC that I'm most proud of on this list. It's a build that can stagger enemies in an instant, whether they're up close or at long range. But at the core of this build is its melee weapon, the Plasma Thrower. This thing is super underrated. Many people use it on a biped and assume that it's bad because it locks you in place while you're swinging it. And while it can be used while moving on tank treads, it's not great with those legs either, as tank momentum often carries you out of range for the second hit. However, where it truly shines is on quads, because while hovering on quads, you can still move while throwing it, and unlike with tank treads, quads give you fine control over the direction you're moving in. And as long as you're hovering while you throw it, you are able to get this perfect range for both plasma throws. If both hits connect, then most enemy ACs will be staggered, and the direct damage potential it has is also absurd. It also pairs very well with the flamethrower, since you always want to be stuck to enemies anyway, and the status effect from the flamethrower helps to open up enemies to subsequent staggers, creating a loop where enemies get staggered in an instant. Also, the flamethrower doesn't really need great FCS tracking, as it shoots out fire in a cone, and our FCS is actually the one that is optimized for missiles, because on our back are the Trueno missile launchers. These are unlike any other missile launcher. They fire two high-speed projectiles that have a bit of tracking if you're locked on, and they deal a ton of stagger. These make up for the build's weakness at long range, but the special thing about these missiles is that they actually focus really well at close range as well. With their high direct damage adjustment, the Trueno make for amazing stagger punishes, a fact that is even more true when you consider that they can be fired at staggered opponents before their missile lock even completes, because you don't need missile guidance when firing at a stationary target, so being able to fire these early a lot of the time just makes them deal way better DPS. As for the theme, I've simply stolen Rokumonsen's amazing paint job from the arena, since he has that iconic plasma thrower build, but I also have a Sula-themed variant of this build that uses pulse weapons on the right side for its close-range damage, and a shield on the left side that you constantly hold up for damage mitigation while you get close. This variant is also very strong. It's limited to close range, but I wanted to get a good shield build up on this list, and I think this is one of the best shield builds that I could get to work. Link in the description. By the way, the other link in the description links to this, a piece of displayed artwork inspired by Armored Core and designed by myself and Chun Lo. This is on sale now, and if you purchase with the link in the description before the 3rd of October, you'll get 29% off for this displate and up to 40% off if you buy a number of my other prints as well. You guys have heard it all before at this point, but displate are special because their prints are made of metal and they hang with stick-on magnets that, if applied properly, allow you to hang your prints without damaging your walls, which is a great option if you're renting, especially. Special thanks again to Chun Lo for nailing what I had in mind for this commission. Now, back to the video. So, this marks the end of all of the builds that I designed, but of course there are other builds that I want to shout out as well. First, I'd like to shout out the other winners of the community competition, as well as just say thank you again to everyone who submitted something. I looked over every single one, and it was really hard knowing that I wouldn't be able to credit you all properly. Nonetheless, in 5th place we have the Toyota Trueno AC86. I love the initial D theme of this build. Many of you will get that reference. There was a lot of time put into the decals here, and it shows. The weapons all work together here as well, and the build just looks aesthetic as hell. Well done. In 4th place, the Kingfisher, a blue, yellow, and white design that plays on the Kingfisher bird, with weapons that are all designed for crit fishing. Basically, they build up stagger, like I did with my other build with the Vientos, except this build is able to capitalize on them at range with the needle launcher. Or, if you're at close range, you can use the pile bunker, depending on where you are. I just love how this theme was cleverly woven into the gameplay, and it all works together so well. Serious props for that. In 3rd place, another car-themed build, this time themed after the McLaren MP4 23 F1 car, with an astonishing level of decal detail. This build plays similarly to my Worker Bee build, except with the Sweet 16 shotgun in the right arm and a diffuse laser cannon on the back. Amazing style, and great weapon choices as well. In 2nd place we have Blind Riot by Kel the Skeleton, which takes 2nd place not only due to its great theme and great decals, but because it taught me about a unique gameplay loop that I hadn't considered before. Basically, by sticking enemies with the stun baton's charged attack, enemies are afflicted with a delayed burst of electric energy that goes off after a short countdown, and during this countdown you're supposed to charge up your linear rifle and unleash your attack at the exact moment that the stun baton charge goes off, delivering what is a guaranteed direct hit to opponents. The charged melee weapon can also be used to create a unique stagger loop, which is an idea that I reckon could inspire a lot of other builds as well. I will say that this build is not like overpowered or anything, but it's a really fun anti-AC build, and I just think the gameplay loop that you get into with it is so cool. And again, 1st place goes to Microwave N by Stephen Dunn, who we shouted out at the start of the video. I love it. But I'm still not done, because there are a few other creators that I'd like to shout out as well. First up, Ouroboros. This guy makes PvP builds that are true to the spirit of this video as well, with thoughtful designs and unique gameplay twists to every single one of them. But unlike my builds, Oro's builds are primarily designed for PvP, so I'd highly recommend subscribing to his channel if PvP is more your thing. On that same note, ndr is another great PvP channel to check out, as they upload a lot of extremely unique PvP builds that attempt to break the meta in some way, usually. And I can't forget Krite either. Krite puts out the best guides that go in-depth on statistics in many of From Software's games, and their breakdowns were an invaluable resource to me when I was putting together many of these builds. Highly recommend their channel if number crunching is your thing. Beyond these channels, there are too many others to mention. I'll link a bunch more in the description, but other than that, thank you for watching. Next up for me are lore videos. Until next time, thanks guys.